Alrighty, welcome to Designer's Corner. Here we go. Getting a quick start today. So, welcome again. I am your host, Josh. I've been a UX designer for over a decade now, and I'm here to just teach the community about the ins and outs of UX design. So, me, you find me on Twitter and YouTube, as well as we're just getting straight into this recap from last week. Basically, so over the weekend, I went to a conference, so gather around, we're doing some story time. So, one of the things I noticed from some junior versus senior designers, or as I was kind of looking around the room, it reminded me of the ways that a lot of people kind of get fixated on certain things, certain aspects about industry here. And when you're making these decisions for, your brand, sometimes you'll be, or your product, sometimes you'll be faced with, a question. Maybe, should our brand be red or should it be blue? The answer? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? These are just arbitrary questions. Sometimes you're going to be faced with some ideas, and there's a lot of people doing research into this stuff. The research is good, really good to have, ideas, fundamentals, foundations underneath you. But there are so many different things that they just don't matter that much, especially in the long run. Here's one that my company was posed with. Should we use a badge or a tag? The answer? Who cares? Who cares? It doesn't matter. When you're faced with some of these things, you want to make sure that you're making a smart decision. That's a good way to phrase it. From week one, we talked about UX design is about decision making. Decision making is pivotal, but what you don't want is you're not actually after the right answer. Now we try to choose the best answer that we can, but it's not always about getting the right answer. When we're making these decisions, you're going to use your foundational principles, your understanding of communication language, your color theory. You want to make sure that your texts are legible, that they're an appropriate size. You want to use your design principles to communicate these ideas to people. But at the end of the day, you want to choose what works, and you want to choose what works for you, because there's so many different brands out there. There's so many different colors. There's so many different design languages. There's so many different shapes. When you're choosing this stuff, it's good to go with trends. It's good to go with things that other research has proven, has worked either for other companies or, just exudes the idea that you're trying to get across. But when it gets down to it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Don't be one of these sticklers out here, too caught up in some of the science, too caught up in some of the options, really. When posed with too many options, people tend to freeze. So it's important that you understand that a lot of these things are arbitrary, and you're not always going for the right answer. You're going for the best answer or the best solution that you can come up with. So don't take it too seriously. Just go with the flow and do what works. That was basically, my takeaway from kind of just being at this conference, seeing some of the other people in there, and just kind of, whenever I look at this, I always am a little bit shocked in a way at, how many people are simply breaking into the industry, nowadays. And, it's really good. We need designers, we need people breaking in, but the way to kind of set yourself apart is to exude that confidence. Don't be too much of a stickler. Don't, it's cool if you're like a type snob, if you're, a color theorist, if you bring this type of, understanding and this language, these ideas to, your design philosophy and your abilities. But, at the end of the day, we're all making products. We're all human. We'll have a chance to rebrand, and that kind of keeps us employed too, being able to rebrand. And not only that, you can make the best decision today, but it's not going to matter in 10 years. The business is going to rebrand regardless of how great your design is. Trends are going to change. Red is going to become blue over the next couple of years. Pantone, comes out with a new fall color every single fall. So don't worry about whatever you're doing today. Make the best decision. It's not always the right decision, but you want to have a good understanding of what you're doing so that you can make that good decision. So we're going to get into our demonstration for today, and we're going over 5 must-have plugins. So we've been using Figma for a little bit, and one of the things that I use, especially in my work, and let's check to see if this is working. All right, great. Figma is showing up. Have that background. All right, here we go. All right, so here we have Figma, and we've been using it for a little bit. But one of the things that we haven't talked about yet are the plugins. Perhaps I've used 1 or 2, but it's important to kind of go over this because plugins will save you time and effort. So first one that I want to start with here is Material.io. And so this is Material Symbols by Google. Press Shift-I to fire up your resources window and then get the plugins here. So from here, I've got my material symbols. Go ahead and you can just click on this and then you'll get pop-up, and the pop-up is great because it offers you some features. Little search bar here, you get to choose outlined, rounded, sharp icons. So if it's a little tough to see, the icons are changing. We'll see a little bit better of an idea in just a minute. But you can also search some things like a thumbs up, thumbs down. In this case, I'm just going to do the regular thumbs up, thumbs down. Here we go. Click on it. It'll bring it into your scene. Now, something that's important, if you have it selected and you click on a different one, it'll change it. So just be careful of that. Make sure that you drag out a copy, have the one that you want to change selected, click on it, and then it will change it. So this is awesome because Material.io is a big library by Google that is under like the Google Fonts brand. So besides Google Fonts, they also have their Material.io for things like Android OS. And so this will save you on having to either make up your own icons or anything like that. And especially if you're working with developers, a lot of developers are probably relying on the Google brand, the Google Material.io anyway. So they'll probably be working in Material.io and its icons and so forth. So it'll just align with whatever project you're working on, most likely, unless you're making your own custom stuff, but that's something else. Otherwise, if you're making mockups, it's something great. So besides that, you also get to, and with the same icon selected, let me go ahead and zoom in just so we can see it a little bit better. Zoom out so we don't get that grid. You can also change the weight, and you can change this stuff on the fly. That's pretty awesome. So now your icons are changing on the fly just from you having selected your icon on the board. You can also change for fill. It will always come in as this 1C, 1B, 1F color, even if you have on whatever the light mode is. This dark theme. So this, in theory, should have brought it in a light color, but it doesn't. Some reason. But anyway, that's something that you can just do, and you can just use it. It works. It's great. So go ahead and use Material Symbols, download it or find it just by opening your plugins window and searching Material, and it'll be right there. Go ahead and save it as well. That way you have it in your collection. And that one's by Google. Next up, we have Unsplash. Unsplash is a really great one in order to just bring in some stock imagery. Take a look at that. Unsplash. So now the Unsplash plugin, go ahead and fire up plugins, search Unsplash, show up, click on it, run it. Takes a second to load. But either way, you get to pull it up, and then you'll be able to just import either whatever you want. It gives you some suggested categories here. So this one brings in food, and then you got some stock imagery, depending. Maybe you're making an app that, you know, is food-based culinary. Maybe you're looking for a cityscape. You're looking for something like this. Either way, you'll be able to click on the image with nothing selected here. Well, and do that. Now with nothing selected here, click on the image. It'll import the image, and the image will usually be very large. These are very high quality images. Really good. Oh, really good, but you may have to size it down depending. One of the things that you can do if you don't want to have your image come in, you know, extraneously large like that, go ahead, either draw out your space, you know. So in this case, I've created a square. You can go ahead and now with the square selected, click on the image, and it will bring it into square and just kind of mask it off in that way. So this way, whatever size or shape, or actually let me draw a circle. See, that's different. Go with a cat. So now with that selected, it'll import the cat into that circle, and now you basically get what could be a profile picture. So Unsplash is really good. Takes all the Google searching out of the mix, and it really helps to save time in that way. So go ahead and download Unsplash. Next up, Lorem ipsum. Go ahead and take a look at that. Lorem ipsum. This one is a great one to take all the guesswork out of having to think of your own sentences and stuff like that. Besides the fact that Lorem ipsum is a great way to, you know, not have to worry about developers getting caught up on whatever words there are. You know, they'll oftentimes copy and paste the text that you have in your designs. So in order to make it clear that this is just mock copy, it's not real, I want to go ahead and select a layer, and then it'll allow you to select different options here. In this case, we'll pick 4 sentences, generate, and now it rolls right off the page. Let me go ahead and limit the width to let's try 720. That looks like a little too big. Bring it down, 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 down. Okay. So now we're able to change some of the text and just kind of bring in some mock text. Really helps. You can select multiple layers, run it again. In this case, let's do 2 paragraphs. Let's do a couple of words. Choose 18 words. Generate. And again, you may have to just change sizing of your bounding box, but either way, it brings it in, and I think it's going to just kind of pull in the same type of script each time. You may get different results, but for the most part, it's going to generate just a random block of text that's similar in most cases, all cases, but it will change a little bit. So either way, you're just working with some fake text. It's not that big of a deal which way or that way. So next one that we have up, unlock all layers. Unlock all layers plugin. This one can be a lifesaver from time to time. And so for this one, let's say you're working with whatever artboard, whatever design you have here. So in this case, I just kind of recreated the Figma font, or the Google font, sorry. Figma is integrated with all the Google fonts and stuff like that. But either way, let's say you're working on your design and you want to go ahead and select. You want to select everything. Okay, right now I'm only able to select this, but you want to select everything. And now what you normally have to do is go into your panel, your left side panel, layers panel, and either start unticking these lock icons, Or let's say in the case that you have a far more developed screen, you're working on a whole web page, maybe you have just layers upon layers, and there's different items here and there that are locked, and you have to search through those layers. Maybe if you have some layers that are collapsed, so you can't see it all. How are you supposed to then go ahead and select your layers? Well, go ahead and use the unlock all layers. It is a simple plugin, so you can either just run it like so. Plugin 4 layers have been unlocked. Great. Now the lock is gone over there. I'm just going to undo that. And you can also run it Control, Shift, Alt, L. I believe I'm on PC, so I don't know how it magically works. They don't tell you that that's the key binding for it in the docs, but that is, again, the locks are gone. They were there, now they're gone. All objects unlocked. You get a little message there. So now you can go ahead and grab your items, move them right along. That's the unlock all layers. It can be a lifesaver. It takes all the guesswork out of having to look at your different layers and figure this stuff out. So that one's a great one. I highly recommend that one. Moving on, we have change text. This one's a pretty cool one. Now there are many, that change the text for you, but in this case, this is the one that I recommend over some of the other ones. I think it works the best. Let's take a look at it. We have the change text. All right, so in Figma, you have a couple different options. Now each of these is currently a frame. We have rectangle, circle, triangle. They're named some different things. Now you have the option to select over your frames, press Control R, and this will rename. So now we're going to name, rename these, and we're going to call it shape layer. Shape layer. So now what we can do is it will rename each one of these to shape layer. That's pretty cool. Maybe you want, when you get into some of the prototyping, some of the naming conventions are important if you're especially working with Smart Animate. So, and we'll get into that at a later time. But naming conventions are important. As long as we're here, we may want to not have each of these called shape layer. So select over all the layers again. And this rename is just a built-in function, so we haven't even gotten to the change text just yet. So before we've even done that, this built-in renaming feature, Control R, will allow me to again select the current name. So just by hitting this button, it brings in a $, ampersand, and that will preview the current name. If I were to, let's say, want to change it to shape object, I could use the search and replace feature. In this case, I'll just go ahead and use the current name. So that's what the preview looks like. Space between, and then let's go with the numbering up, and it depends on the order that these shapes are layered on the left hand side. So you'll get a little preview of what the numbers will look like, but when we rename it, it actually came in backwards, so I'd have to rename using it number down. But either way, now all our shape layers have both the name and a suffix number to it, which allows us to kind of visually search the layers panel a little bit easier, and gives us some context clues, lets us know that this frame is a shape layer, etc. Getting into the change text plugin, however, when we go ahead and run that, it will search for the text layers within your frames. And so we're looking at it's giving us a preview: rectangle, circle, and triangle. But if we don't want these each named their own property like that, maybe we just want to call it object. So now we're getting a preview that rectangle will change to object, circle will change to object, triangle will change to object. And so from there, if you want to update that, then each of these will change to object. And it's semi-useful depending on if you want to change a lot of values all at once. Let's say you have a header to a web page or an app page that you want to change. The page changed from communications to verbiage or something like that. And now instead of having to double click on each of these and change them one at a time, you can just go ahead and click on all 3 layers and then run the plugin once to be able to change it and do whatever you need to do there. Go ahead and this one also uses the $ampersand to match the values. And let's go ahead and just add objects. So now we've changed them all once more. That's very useful. So it may not seem as useful in this arbitrary little demonstration, but it can be very useful from time to time. Go ahead, take a look. So we also have some honorable mentions before we get into our final demonstration here. So for honorable mentions, we have the slope plugin. This one's pretty cool. It allows you to do some of the same type of text changes that we kind of already looked at, but more so working with date and time, and it allows you to use sequencing in numbers. So sometimes you do want to go ahead and change your layers or generate text layers, but you want to generate those text layers with a sequence of numbers after them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that kind of counting system. And this plugin allows you to do that. So it's pretty cool. And what sets it apart, especially, there's not a lot that have the date time feature available, but this one will allow you to set random or more so sequential dates, either going up or down. And it also has a time included in that as well. So if you need to, you can go ahead and generate those times. And then that way, I think it just brings in just the time, like a standard time block. So I think it does the date, but then just brings in like 8 o'clock or something. But more so when you're working with mock data, you're just creating mock-ups, you just want to visually represent the stuff, and it can get annoying to have to type 8:00 AM PM, whatever the suffix there is. So instead of doing that, just run the plugin, generate that automatically, and that way you can have some mock data without having to type that. We have random name generator. The random name generator does exactly what it says. You select your text layer, and then it generates a random name. I don't know where it's getting its database from exactly. Some weird names from time to time, but for the most part, when you're just working with mock data, it gives you what you're looking for. There's not much to it. Just go ahead and run it. It'll give you a first, last name, full name, male, female, both. So pretty easy, pretty good stuff, and it saves you a lot of headache from having to, waste the energy thinking of random names and then typing them out. Instead, just go ahead, run the plugin once, having all your layers that you need or want to change selected, and it will change it in a jiffy. Random numbers. Now this one is one of my preferred ones in terms of a random number generator, and this one is pretty cool because it allows you to simply type in a hashtag for every digit of the number. So let's say you wanted a 6-digit number, and it will look like what's located in the middle there. Hashtag, 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 hashtag. 6 hashtags followed by whatever you want the upper limit to be. So each one of those 9s correlates to one of the hashtags and tells it you can count between 0 and up to 9, or if you wanted to limit it to 6 or 2 or 1, and that way you can generate different types of numbers. For example, a binary number would be about 8 hashtags, and then you type in the 1 8 times to be able to generate and let it know that it's going to generate a number between 0 and 1. So each of those hashtags will go either a 0 or a 1, and it'll just create random numbers for you that way. What's also cool about this is that it works on an equation. So you'll see at the end there, hashtag N, asterisk R, /L. Just read the docs for it. You'll kind of get a sense of what it does. But basically, instead of having to write out all the hashtags and all the numbers and stuff like that, you can just kind of create a simplified version where you can just do the #9 and then tell it to run times six times, and that'll give you a 6-digit number. So it's even easier than my first explanation there. But this one, so that one's cool because you can just kind of go ahead. You got to plan ahead a little bit, but as long as you know the text layers that you want to number later on, go ahead and you can use like the change text layer to change them all to #9, and then it'll generate a random number 0 through 9, and kind of save you a lot of time that way. It just takes a little bit of preparation. Here's another one though, random number, and this one I was kind of sleeping on for a little bit, or random text generator, and this one I was kind of sleeping on for a little bit, but for the most part it allows you to generate random text in a very similar way that the random number one does, but it allows you to do it by supplying a list of what you want. So this one, you can either tell it to work between 1 and 100, or you can tell it to and more so it's not really a generator, but it is more of a randomizer. And it says random in the name, but you'll supply the list of values that you want to give to your text values, text layers. Like its example is red, blue, and green, and then it'll just kind of mix those up, and each layer will get its own value. One will be red, one will be blue, one will be green. So this one is a little bit nicer in a way than the random number generator, because the random numbers doesn't allow you to exclude 0. This one does, however, and this one also has suffix and prefix as part of its set. So if you don't want to just replace all your text, if you already have your layer name set and you just want to add a 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever onto it, you can do that. It's not sequential in that way. Again, it's going to be random, going to randomly assign, but perhaps that's what you're looking for, and we'll get into something that an applicable situation like that. Another one that's useful, last one to round out the honorable mentions, is the rotate origin. And the rotate origin allows you to change the focal point for an object, so you can rotate it and not just spin it where it's sitting. You can move it around like a clock dial, and sometimes that's useful if you're trying to make like certain patterns and shapes. And yeah, that's the way it works. It's good for some design work. Not always the most useful. A lot of the times you'll be able to get away with certain things, but sometimes you need a more calculated rotating feature, and Figma only works by rotating around the object's center point. So this one's very good to get past that. So back to Figma one last time. So here we have one last example. And so when you're using some of these plugins, sometimes you'll want to chain them together, and this will make the most efficient way to work with this. So let's say you're working with some data here. I'm just going to go ahead and call this one a number layer. So that one will change to numbers. So just to show how this is going to work, if I go ahead and gotta hold control, go ahead and hold control, and then I can select into some of these layers, and it'll give me just what I've selected over. If you're trying to get the entire graph, you have to do it in sections, because if you select over this portion but then extend your selection over multiple actually this one worked. This one almost worked. So basically, if I were to change it, or if I were to change anything, let's say, which one's going to work? So I think this should work. Let's say red, blue. This one is the random text generator. And change it. Now, as you can see, only some of them changed to red and blue, and the reason being, only some of the text layers, these are the ones that are underlined, were selected. Everything else, because the entire frame was selected, so that'd be the bounding box that you can see, this box going around it. Because the entire frame was selected, the plugin didn't recognize the layer as being a text layer, it recognized it as being more of a shape or a frame, so it wasn't able to dig into the actual text itself, and so it only changed portions of it or of what was selected. So what you have to do if you wanted to do that, you'd have to do it in sections, first by holding Control and dragging and select, and then by holding Control Shift, drag and select. Now in this case, if I were to run that plugin again, and then I do red, blue, now this time all the layers will change, and now I didn't have to click into each and every layer to be able to do that. But before we get ahead of ourselves too much, one last time, we'll just use that one more time. I like this one. Again, like I said, you have to supply the values that you want to be within it, but it will randomize it for you. Key, item, let's go phrase. All right, so now that I've given it 5 different values there, change text, item, item, key, phrase, word, item, word. All right, great. So let's say that we're trying to do something more like, well, this first example here. We need to fill out most of these text boxes. So let's go ahead and change these, call them names. Oh wait, I did the wrong. We have to use the change name or change text. Okay, so text value, call it names. Before I rename the layer off to the left side, but this time I'll rename this. So now we want some random names, and not only that, but each name is also going to get an ID. We'll just use a random number for the ID. What you can do is go ahead and change this, and what we're going to do is we're going to think in caps here, think ahead a little bit, and we're going to first, let's see, first we'll generate the names. So we'll go ahead and generate the names, and we want to put in parentheses the ID. We're going to tag on to it the parentheses, and inside the parentheses we'll have a number. So we'll probably change it so that we'll create the parentheses with our number value being able to be generated, and then we'll also just close the parentheses as well. What we'll do first, run the random name generator. Close up a box. It's gonna be male and female names. We'll go with the full name, both. Boom! Look at that. Look how easy that was. It just gives us all the names we want. And now we can go ahead and select these. We're gonna go change text. Go ahead and $, ampersand. So now it's giving us our preview. Okay, looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and add the parentheses to it and add a little space between, right? And then let's go ahead and get our number, and we'll make it a 3-digit number. So we're planning ahead, you know. We don't want it to look like at the end $9 times 3, but go ahead and update this. Now, when we run our random numbers, now each one of these has been given a random number with 3 digits to it. And it was that easy. You didn't even, the random numbers doesn't even pull up a box, an input box. It just does it. Before, look like, don't blink, after. So it was that easy to just create random text and, you know, give everyone an ID here. And as well, you know, if we wanted to, let's go ahead, let's just use the random numbers. Not the random numbers, but the random text generator, just to see how this one kind of works and differs. So I want these numbers to be, and in this case, it'll probably be easier. I'm going to do a 6-digit number, but it'll be easier to probably use the random numbers generator, because then, just like you saw, all we need to do is just do hashtag, tell it the upper limit or lower limit for the number, and then tell it to run, you know, times 6 times, and it will create 6 digits to that number. In this case, let's go ahead 1 2 3 4 5 and go between 1 2 3 4 5 6. So go between 100,000 and 999,000. Change text, and there we go. So now we have our individuals with their ID number, and then this numbers column. And so in case you're working with tables, in case you're working with a lot of text, this would be a killer to have to go through. Even is bad enough having to just name the titles of these table columns, but in order to save you a ton of time, input just some random data for your mock designs that no one cares about, and to get it done efficiently. And you want to be proactive about this. So you want to think smarter, work smarter, not harder. Go ahead and use these plugins, daisy chain them, and think ahead to figure out how you need to kind of format this data. And then you can just go ahead and in the click of 3 to 5 buttons, it will update. How many is this? 4 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4 by 8 is that 32? So 4 by 8. So it saves you a ton of time. So that's basically the gist of what we're going over for today. So thank you so much for joining us. Remember, we have Photoshop, Google Slides, and Figma under our belt, and that is a great thing. All right, go ahead and party. Go ahead and celebrate. You want to add these to your resume. You want to add these to whatever you're doing in terms of your portfolio, in terms of your skill set. Go ahead and utilize these. These make you a far more valuable asset to any company, to any business, personal project. So thank you for joining us here, and I hope you learned something. Make sure that you work smarter, not harder. Use those plugins, and get it done more efficiently. So glad that you enjoyed it, and I'm glad that I was able to stay with you here. So we'll hopefully see you next week, around the same time. It's a little tricky to get on at the same time every week, but if you liked the video, subscribe, like it, and yeah, thanks. Bye.